Hello and welcome from Bali. Lately, people have been using the words psychic to describe me. And I think that's kind of funny because that's not how I would consider myself. What I actually would consider myself is someone who has earnestly and wholeheartedly done quite a bit of work of deprogramming and unwinding myself in order to honor the inherent sensitivity and intuition that lies not just within inside me, but inside all of us. And after having taught groups for several years, several different kinds of populations, many different cultures, one thing that there are a few things that I've observed that block us from our own personal ability to tune in. And one of them is fear. All the old fear that binds and ties us up. This can be related to just past events that have happened to ourselves, and we've created some sort of protection in order to not have that feeling reoccur. And it can also just be the collective fear that lives in many different forms and many different ways. The fears of being alone, the fear of not being able to support oneself, the archetype of the prostitute runs rampant in all of us. So there's the process of detoxing the fear out of our system so that those wires can begin to get untangled. Because while we still have that fear lens wrapped around our vision, we can't actually see what our true vision is. And ways that we can support ourselves in the first place is consciously choosing stability and safety so that we know that there isn't anything to fear. We are in a safe, calm, quiet space. We create practices that calm our nervous system down. And that way, we won't be reacting to something that's actually happening. That way we can trust when we're in this calm space, and as we're calming ourselves down, we can start to sense that fear vibration that has been living inside of us for a very long time. And we can choose to start to rewire it. And as JFK said so brilliantly, the only thing to fear about fear is fear itself. So when we ourselves are able to look at our own fear in its eyes and bring love to it, it can begin to dissolve, and it no longer is something that's running us. Because the challenge that we often have is we are wanting to avoid this pain that happened so long ago, whether personally or in a collective sense. And we're doing everything to avoid that pain and torquing our entire system out of alignment to avoid that feeling. And so it's a very simple practice, but it does take a lot of courage and ability to stay present with these feelings that we've been avoiding. And I'll talk more about that in another video. The other thing that blocks our intuition is our inability to trust ourselves. All of us, for different reasons in different ways, are hooked into the external. And so instead of being able to feel for ourselves and think for ourselves, we often will say, well, what do you think? Or there's that fear of if we step forward that somehow we'll get reprimanded, or there will be that fear of actually getting killed for stepping forward. So beginning to trust yourself. And what that means is also allowing the sensitivity in your body to be there And so that instead of thinking that you have these strange aches and pains that need to be micromanaged and dealt with, whether you're taking pills or even using alternative therapy to fix the pain, the key is listening to the pain. Bring compassion to it. It obviously is there for a reason. And it's telling you either something's out of alignment, meaning you, or something you're not honoring. There's something that you need to step forward into, or there might be something that you need to say yes to or no to. Our body gives us very direct feedback. And until we begin to listen to it, because most of us come from cultures that you get a pain and it's like, well, no, you got to go to work and you better take a pill in order to keep going. So we're constantly shutting ourselves down. And I know it's taking me a bit to really honor it. But when you're finally in the flow and able to trust your sensations, it makes your life really easy. You don't have to control as much at all. You don't need to plan as much because your system is giving you very direct feedback. Yes, this is going to work if you do that. This is what feels good. Oh, I don't know why it doesn't feel good, but for some reason it doesn't feel good. Because your system, our bodies are these exquisite radars that will light up and blossom when we're around the places and people that nourish us, when we're doing the activities that enliven us. And if you knew that actually the practice of the spiritual practice is really simple, it's honoring your joy. Because when you have that light, you can be the light for the world when you are lit up. So that's a very, very, very important foundation to have for your practice. And so when you start to decompress and detox all the old fear out so that you can trust your radar, and when you promise that you're going to trust your sensations, trust your feelings, suddenly your vision clears and it truly becomes magical. You can see better. Not just yourself, not just others. You also have the opportunity to open your mind in a whole other way. So the last point that I'll bring in this is I've done myself, and I do, for those of you who've trained with me know this, a lot of unlearning. So I'm not, because I actually loved school. I was a dork. I loved it, okay? I loved it. But there was, from the patterns of learning, that created certain grooves in our brain. And because there was that reward pleasure technique that was given for all of us, I found that I started shutting down other parts of my brain and then really overdeveloping other parts. So it's not to abandon this part of your brain, but it's starting to develop this side of your brain more. And, if you're already someone who's a musician, and not a musician who can look at sheet music and just start to play, but one who can start to listen and feel music and have a conversation in a more spontaneous way, that's what we need. That ability to trust the spontaneity. And that does come through creativity. Anything new that we're doing will help develop that. So that means doing different kinds of movement. If you're always doing yoga, make sure that you don't do just one kind of style. Make sure you're tasting a lot of different kinds. Bring in maybe different kinds of Pilates. Practice the gyrotonic technique is wonderful because it introduces a whole other way of moving. I'm not promoting any of these. I'm just saying possibilities. Dance is fantastic. Any kind of movement, ways of using your hands in different ways. I know that I play the piano and I understand it, but starting to play the kora, which is an African harp, will start to rewire my brain in a different way. Writing with your non-dominant hand, drawing with your non-dominant hand, just doing things out of the ordinary will start to break open and create new patterns. So there's more I can say about this, but it actually is simple. And it's very important for you to start to honor you. All of us are sensitive in different ways. Some of us have been numbed out for such a long time that as I say this and you hear this, you may not believe me. So there may be a bit of a process or an initiation you need to go through in order to feel safe enough to feel. Our bodies are magic. It is the whole universe, God, that lives inside of us. And you have the answer inside of you. Namaste.